Welcome to today's explainer, where we're going to dive into exactly how to clean your mental lens and completely upgrade your cognitive operating system. Think of your mind like a really powerful piece of software that, well, just hasn't had a proper update in years. We're going to fix that today.
So let's just jump right in. I want to start with a direct challenge to you. What if the reality you see every single day is actually completely distorted? Now, I know that sounds a bit extreme, but the truth is, the world you experience on a daily basis isn't an objective reality. It's a heavily filtered, historically biased version constructed entirely by your subconscious mind, based largely on your past experiences and primal survival instincts.
You see, the core issue here is perception. It's essentially this invisible lens through which we experience reality. And for most of us, that lens is cracked, or at the very least, pretty badly smudged. Living through this distorted lens is exactly what causes unnecessary conflict. It makes you miss incredible opportunities, and it artificially limits what you actually believe is possible for yourself.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the distorted mental lens, and then we'll walk through 5 concrete steps: recognizing your brain tricks, noticing sensory gaps, expanding your sensory range, zooming out for perspective, and finally, auditing your mental filters. This is basically your 5-part masterclass on reprogramming the subconscious mind.
Let's kick things off with part 1, the distorted mental lens. It is officially time to upgrade your software.
Here's the really exciting part. You absolutely do not have to accept your faulty default programming. You don't have to just live with a smudged lens. We can actively clean it, recalibrate it, and upgrade it to serve us so much better. You have to move from being a passenger to being the pilot in your own mind. The stakes here are incredibly high. This isn't just about passive observation, it's about actively reclaiming your power to create the reality you want, rather than the one your subconscious just blindly defaults to.
Moving right along to step 2, recognize your brain tricks, or as I like to call it, spotting the shortcuts. Because let's face it, your brain isn't nearly as objective as you might think. It's actually a massive pattern recognition machine that is constantly taking energy-saving shortcuts. The save processing power, it makes these quick-fire assumptions based on the past, not on objective reality. Just look at the difference between a fact and a story. The objective fact might be that someone didn't wave back to you, but the story your brain instantly invents to fill in the blank is, oh, they are deliberately ignoring me. That emotional, fear-based story is exactly what triggers a powerful reaction, leading to totally unnecessary conflict and emotional exhaustion.
So, how do we actually hit the brakes on this automatic reaction? Well, you can try this scene replay exercise. Whenever you feel a negative reaction bubbling up, just pause, write down what happened from your point of view. Then, deliberately switch roles and imagine their view. Finally, step all the way back and look at it as a completely neutral observer. This practice separates your perception from objective reality, which immediately prevents emotional exhaustion and builds some serious mental muscle for empathy.
All right, step 3, notice sensory awareness gaps and actively loosen those brain filters.
Picture this. You're sitting in a crowded cafe. You hear the background noise, you smell the coffee, but can you pinpoint how many different scents you actually detect? You are likely completely unaware of the millions of sensory details your brain is filtering out every single second just to help you survive without getting overwhelmed. These are your sensory awareness gaps. Living on sensory autopilot like this keeps you disconnected and reactive. But systematically loosening those filters and training your sensory awareness deeply grounds you in the present, enhances your cognitive function, and unlocks a much more vivid reality. It basically pulls you out of anxiety about the past or future and drops you right into the richness of the present moment.
So how do we actively practice this? We use the one sense at a time drill. It's exactly what it sounds like. You choose a single sense, strip away distractions, and search for 5 subtle details you'd normally miss. Let's do a micropause right now. Just listen. Can you hear the faint hum of a refrigerator? A distant car outside? The sound of your own breathing? By deliberately isolating one sense like this, you are quite literally building new neural pathways in your brain.
That brings us to step 4, expand your sensory range to balance out your senses.
You know, most of us lean way too heavily on one dominant sense. Maybe you're a highly visual person, or maybe you're super auditory. Relying on just that one dominant sense creates a major cognitive bias and traps you in these rigid mental loops.
Elite performers, like top athletes and musicians, actually break these subconscious habits using a sensory shift strategy. For example, if sight is your dominant sense, try eating a meal blindfolded. By deliberately weakening that dominant sense, you force your brain to build dynamic new mental maps by compensating with taste, smell, and touch. You are actively rewiring how you perceive the world.
Next up is step 5. Zoom out for perspective, so you can see the bigger picture.
Our brains literally have a DNA-coded survival instinct to zoom in on immediate threats, problems, and obstacles. Thousands of years ago, sure, that kept us alive. But in today's complex world, this narrow focus is your biggest limitation because it completely blocks out your strategic thinking. Think about playing a game of chess. If you have this narrow focus on saving your queen, you might temporarily protect the piece, but you'll probably lose the game. But if you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, you might realize that sacrificing the queen is exactly what you need to do to secure a massive checkmate.
The cost of staying stuck in that narrow focus, it's honestly massive. Operating in a constant fight-or-flight mindset drains your energy and leads to missed opportunities. It keeps you in a state of chronic emotional stress, which creates this self-fulfilling prophecy of scarcity. It entirely blinds you to the fact that a seemingly bad career setback, like, say, losing a project, might actually be the exact push you need to develop a new skill or find a much better role.
So here is a fantastic way to flip the script. It's an exercise called, "What if this is good for me?" First, you acknowledge the immediate problem, and then you mentally fast forward 1 to 5 years. From that future vantage point, find the hidden opportunity and connect it to your bigger goals. This mental time travel immediately reduces your emotional urgency and actively trains your brain to proactively seek solutions instead of just dwelling on the obstacles.
And finally, step 6. Audit your mental filters and take back your control. Your mind is this incredible processing system, but it's also a highly absorbent sponge. Every single day, it's soaking up cognitive pollution. Without a really strong filter, your reality is being quietly programmed without your consent by fear-based news headlines and comparison-triggering social media posts. Think of your mind like a garden. A mental audit is how you pull the weeds. Because without a strong mental boundary, all that cognitive pollution is going to choke out your clarity. If you let those weeds grow unchecked, you'll be left overwhelmed and entirely programmed by the fear-based narratives of everyone else. Which brings us to the perception audit. I consider this an absolutely non-negotiable self-care practice. Here's how it works. Identify your top 10 daily information sources, then ask yourself honestly, do they empower you or do they program you? Unfollow, mute, or remove the negative fear-based sources immediately. Just get rid of them. Then replace them with educational or uplifting content. Deliberately curating your inputs ensures your subconscious is fueled by constructive, empowering data.
As we wrap up, let's quickly review the entire journey we took today. We started right at the beginning by recognizing that our default mental lens is often completely distorted by past experiences. To upgrade that software, we moved step by step. We learned to spot our brain's tricky shortcuts with scenery plays. We noticed the gaps in our sensory awareness. We expanded our range to break those dominant habits. We zoomed out for better perspective. And finally, we audited our mental filters to pull out the weeds. You are not a prisoner of your perceptions. You are the architect of them. Refining your perception isn't about ignoring the truth or slapping on a mask of fake optimism. It's a lifelong, continuous practice of cleaning your mental lens so you can finally base your decisions on reality.
So I'm going to leave you with this one final provocative thought today. Will you remain a passenger to your subconscious programming, or will you choose to consciously architect the reality you actually desire? The tools are all right here for you. It is time to start cleaning your lens and rewriting the script of your life from the inside out. Thank you so much for joining me on This Explainer, and I'll catch you next time.